After relations between Moscow and Baku worsened, Azerbaijani media published documents shedding light on the incidents in the skies over Grozny on December 25, 2024. As you recall, on that day, an Embraer 190 AR passenger plane from an Azerbaijani airline was shot down over the Chechen capital. There were 67 people on board, 38 of whom died as a result of the crash. However, after the media published the objective control video of the missile launch and the explanatory note from Russian Captain Dmitry Polodichuk, the commander of the Pantsir air defense missile gun system crew who fired at the plane, several questions arise.
Azimuth 338, range 7,000, altitude 490, speed 118, heading 230, yes, range is already 7. Fire! Fire, I said. We have separation.
Let's record this. As you can hear in the video, and as you can read in the note from the chief operator of the Pantsir air defense missile and gun system, Polodichuk, he reported to the command post about locking onto the target, which was at a distance of 7,000 meters. The target flew at an altitude of 490 meters with a speed of 118 meters per second. After that, he was given the order to open fire over the phone. Yes, exactly over the phone, and we'll come back to this later. But why was such an order given? After all, the detected target speed was 118 meters per second. That's 424 kilometers per hour. Ukrainian piston-powered drones fly at speeds about half of that, which is their typical velocity. And unfortunately, Kyiv doesn't have any jet drones yet that are capable of covering the distance from Ukraine to Chechnya. Let's read the note further.
At 8:11, the target detection station identified a potential target, which I tracked with the multifunctional radar station and reported to the 51st Division's Airborne Command Post. At 8:13, I reported the updated coordinates. Azimuth 338 degrees, range 7,000 meters, altitude 490 meters.
For 2 minutes, the crew and the command post observed an object approaching Grozny airport, flying at an altitude of 490 meters. This is also puzzling. 490 meters is an extremely unusual altitude for an unmanned aerial vehicle. Drones typically fly at very low altitudes of 3,200 feet to evade air defense systems. And considering that there are no high-rise buildings in the vicinity of Grozny, the altitude should have been even lower. Drones also perform evasive maneuvers before approaching their target. But the civilian plane was definitely flying straight. That is, the crew and officers at the command post watched for 2 minutes as an object flew in a straight line at an altitude of half a kilometer. In the end, they concluded it was a Ukrainian drone. I don't believe the plane was intentionally shot down. First of all, there's absolutely no motive, and secondly, well, first of all is enough. Rather, the tragedy happened as a result of unprofessional actions by the air defense forces and due to a lack of proper coordination between the air defense forces and civil aviation. By then, Chechnya had already suffered multiple drone attacks. It is also important to note that this tragic mistake is the result of the lack of a well-established automated data transmission system in the Russian army, which I have mentioned many times before.
Let's read Polodichuk's note.
At 5:48, I reported switching to readiness number 1 via mobile. At the position, mobile communication was unstable, with no other reliable means of communication. Fiber optic cables were laid but not connected to the terminal, and there was no digital phone.
Yes, I have already shown you evidence more than once that the Russian army lacks an established data exchange network, even in branches like air defense. Polodichuk states that he communicated with the command post via mobile phone using cellular networks. He also describes this communication as unstable. So, what kind of Russian equivalent of the Link 16 system can we even talk about if an anti-aircraft missile system is communicating with the command post through a mobile phone? And here's the result. Could it be that the command post's radar station didn't see the plane at all? It's possible that when Polodichuk reported the target's altitude as 490 meters, the higher-ranking officers only heard 90 and ordered to open fire. It could. Could it be that the air defense crew was led by an underqualified officer who was given complex equipment to operate? That's impossible. It's a fact. But why am I saying this? Well, at the very least, I want to advise citizens to refrain from flying in areas within range of Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles, because the real danger isn't the drones, but the Russian air defense crews who receive orders by cell phone. Secondly, the publication of the materials we have analyzed should definitely be viewed in the context of the worsening relations between Moscow and Baku. After all, both the explanatory note and the video footage of the Panzer system, which were apparently provided by the Russian side to Azerbaijan as part of the so-called joint investigation of the air crash, were made publicly available for some reason only now. But of course, we are not interested in the conflict between Moscow and Baku itself. We are interested in how Azerbaijan's main ally, Turkey, is taking advantage of this whole situation. And here, if you allow me, I'll start from afar by showing a small fragment from my exclusive video from 5 months ago. But how long will the dual power in Libya last? The thing is, Turkey really has strategic interests in Libya. The demarcation of maritime borders by Tripoli, let's be honest, in favor of Ankara, allows Erdogan to claim a vast area in the Mediterranean Sea, which contains a large gas field. The dispute over this grey area was between Turkey, Cyprus, Greece, Egypt, and until recently Libya, which gave it up after the demarcation of borders with Ankara. So the stability of the government in Tripoli is a crucial task for Erdogan, and the absence of a threat from Haftar, who is in the east of the country, is a strategic objective. And now I have a question. The new government of Syria is currently blocking the removal of Russian military equipment from Tartus. As has already become known, Russian military personnel as well as equipment that was previously stationed in Syria are being redeployed to Libya. But why are they not being allowed to finish what they started? Could it be that Ankara is not interested in the Russian group in Libya getting stronger? Could it be that Ankara is planning to repeat its Syrian success, but this time in Libya? To watch the full exclusive video, subscribe to the Telegram channel Byte Ili Plus, YouTube sponsorship or Patreon. By doing this, you will provide tremendous support not just to the channel. Links to the services are in the description or scan the on-screen QR code. Thanks in advance. I have repeatedly stressed that Turkey is the sole NATO member engaged in multiple proxy conflicts with Russia when discussing Moscow-Ankara relations. Nagorno-Karabakh, Syria and Libya have become regions where the interests of the two states intersected. However, Putin decided to focus on bombing Ukrainian cities, and while he was occupied, Russia consistently lost influence first in the South Caucasus, then in Syria. It would be odd if Erdogan didn't focus on Libya after such triumphs. And yes, we were absolutely right 5 months ago. Only, while back then we discussed the likelihood of a military scenario from Turkey, today we know that on the Libyan track, Recep Erdogan has chosen the diplomatic route. I'll briefly explain, I covered it extensively in an exclusive video. But to put it very simply, Libya at the moment is a country divided into two parts. The east is controlled by General Khalifa Haftar, backed by Russia, while the official government in Tripoli is supported by Ankara. Of course, clashes between the two sides break out from time to time, but on April 4th, 2025, something absolutely unprecedented happens. Saddam Haftar, the general's son, arrives in the Turkish capital and signs a military cooperation agreement with Ankara. Just so you understand, not long ago, regular Turkish forces sent to Libya were fighting against Haftar's militants. And now there's military cooperation, and this isn't just some declarative statement of intent. No, we're talking about buying Turkish weapons and training troops with Turkish specialists. Just recently, the general was saying there would be no peace as long as Turkish soldiers' boots were on Libyan soil, and today they're buying weapons from their main enemy. And you see, Azerbaijan's determination to defend its national interests in the face of Russia's aggressive behavior is, of course, a result of Turkey's growing strength on the international stage. Moscow can threaten Baku as much as it wants, but it won't be able to do anything. I understand that if tensions escalate, Ankara could simply stop ignoring the passage of sanctioned tankers through the Bosphorus, and Russia will lose 30% of its oil revenues. So Solovyov can pour out his insides on television as much as he wants, but now it only causes laughter.
With all due respect to Azerbaijan, its history and traditions, if Russia so much as raises an eyebrow for a second,
and I know what will happen if Russia raises an eyebrow at Azerbaijan.
If we raise an eyebrow, Ukraine will understand everything.
Yes, one eyebrow is still raised at Ukraine. And if Russia raises the other at Azerbaijan, it will look like Mother Russia is standing there with both eyebrows raised high, as if saying with her whole appearance, "Damn, I'm shocked by everything that's happening." And really, how can you not stand there with a face full of, let's say, amazement? In less than 4 years, Russia has managed to lose a huge part of the influence it inherited from the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Honestly, I'm also somewhat surprised at how such a valuable asset could have been squandered so carelessly. In Armenia, they are proposing to close all Russian media outlets and take control of strategic companies from Russian businesses. Kazakhstan and the United Kingdom are signing a military cooperation agreement. Serbia is selling shells to Ukraine. As for Azerbaijan, there is nothing more to say. No, please understand correctly. All this does not mean that the Commonwealth of Independent States countries, or states that were once friendly to Russia, will soon break diplomatic relations with Moscow. Russia still holds significant influence through its oil and gas sector and military power projection. Regrettably, it remains immense. I wouldn't be shocked if Aliyev travels to the Kremlin soon to hug Putin. I fully understand that Moscow plays and will continue to play an important role in international relations for some time to come. I'm talking about something else. Can you imagine how many opportunities Russia would have if it weren't for this absolutely misanthropic, expansionist, and revanchist policy? Imagine if the Kremlin were led by just a normal, adequate, and reasonable politician who didn't threaten anyone and traded peacefully with everyone. What prospects would the largest country on the planet have? But no, this idiot wanted some action.
You know, when everything is calm, measured and stable, we get bored. It's stagnation. We want some action. But as soon as the action starts, everyone thinks it's crazy. Seconds and bullets are both passing by. Bullets are whistling now too, which is terrifying. It's truly terrible. Well, it's terrible, but not absolutely, utterly terrible. Overall, the situation is stable and reliable.
Whoa, holy shit, that was a hell of a hit.
Vladimir Putin regularly talks about the need to create a multipolar world. Of course, he slyly keeps quiet about the fact that in his understanding, this world doesn't mean creating centers of power all over the planet, but total Russian hegemony in Europe and part of Asia. Somewhere out in the Western Hemisphere lies the zone of interest of the United States of America. Only those transformations of the international system of relations that we discussed today are the very process of the formation of a multipolar world, where Turkey, just 30 years ago, was called a military resort province of NATO, but today is an absolutely sovereign state that claims the role of a regional leader. I don't know, maybe that was Putin's plan, to lose some influence so that other countries could increase theirs. Maybe. In any case, I've long said that there is no leader in the world who has done as much harm to Russia and its people as Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin.